Hello everyone, I've got the latest recap of this manhwa, including the most recent raw chapters. If you've already seen the previous part, feel free to skip ahead to the timestamp.
As martial arts were in their nascent stages, monstrous and exotic beasts threatened the very existence of human warriors, forcing them to surrender and retreat. But then, Lu Xing's consciousness traversed time and space, transporting him 10,000 years ahead in a dream world, where the most rudimentary of physical training techniques had evolved into a highly advanced form, thousands of times more effective than before. In this distant future, Lu Xing discovered martial arts scriptures that had been lost to time. The martial arts civilization had peaked in those 10,000 years, but tragically, humanity was no more to carry on the tradition. Lu Xing became the sole inheritor of this ancient legacy. The story unfolds in a world ravaged by a catastrophe. Once the beautiful planet lay in ruins and a gaping hole within the heavens, from which a legion of monsters and creatures poured forth. The traces of humanity had long since vanished, leaving behind nothing but a barren wasteland. Amidst the desolation, however, there stood a lone figure, a man of immense power and unshakable conviction. He stood before the colossal creature with a calm demeanor, his hand held firmly behind his back with otherworldly energy coursing through his veins. The man's eyes blazed in bright light, and with a swift, fluid motion, he unleashed a devastating blast, completely annihilating anything in his way. Lu Xing jolted awake in the middle of class, his eyes bleary and unfocused. The taunting laughter of his classmates echoed in his ears, even the teacher sneered at him with contempt. The teacher pointed an accusatory finger at Lu Xing, his voice dripping with disdain, claiming that no one will ever hire Lu Xing as a bricklayer, since the basic requirement of blood energy level is 0.8 for a bricklayer. As the class finally ended, Lu Xing's friend Ming approached him with concern for his well-being. He offered to take Lu Xing to the internet cafe and treat him to some snacks and games, hoping to lift his spirits. But Lu Xing was too drained from the constant nightmare that had been bothering him for quite some time. Unbeknownst to Lu Xing, fate had conspired to transport him into this isekai. He had been a diligent student, focused on acing his university entrance exam, but now he had to face an entirely different test of survival. Lu Xing couldn't help but notice the similarities between his old world and this new one. The only difference was the incredible level of martial arts that existed in this world. As Lu Xing gazed upon the giant screen broadcasting the recent victory of the 8th Legion, successfully defending another wave of monsters, just then, his reverie was shattered by the sight of a delivery woman carrying an enormous stack of packages with effortless ease. Lu Xing couldn't believe his eyes and envied her power. The sun was slowly sinking into the horizon, casting a warm glow over the city as Lu Xing trudged his way back to his old apartment. His eyes fell upon his mother in the living room, tenderly applying medicinal patches to his father's back. Despite the physical pain, his parents' faces lit up at the sight of their son. His father quickly got dressed, but the bandages and patches on his body betrayed the immense effort he had put in to provide for his family. With a gentle smile, Lu Xing suggested that his father invests in an acupuncture machine to alleviate his pain and promote better circulation. But his father, ever the stoic and strong-willed, simply flexed his bicep and joked that he was made of steel and could withstand any pain. Suddenly, his father took out 2 small containers, which he presented to Lu Xing. It was a new supplement that cost a staggering $20,000, a fortune for a family like theirs. Overwhelmed by his father's selfless gesture, Lu Xing struggled to hold back his tears and bit his lips. As Lu Xing's parents questioned whether his blood energy levels had reached the desired 0.85 mark, he felt a knot of anxiety form in his stomach. He sprinted to his room without wasting a moment, knowing that every second counted. With determination etched on his face, Lu Xing immediately began the body-strengthening technique. The technique was a fusion of ancient yoga, martial arts, and judo, expertly adapted to create a powerful and effective method for beginners to build a solid foundation. Lu Xing took a deep breath before launching into an explanation of the cataclysmic event that had changed the world. 3 centuries ago, the world had been plunged into chaos as monstrous creatures erupted from the sky and the ground, rendering modern weapons useless. In the face of this unprecedented threat, humanity had undergone a genetic mutation, unleashing unimaginable power and ushering in a new age of martial arts. But even with these newfound abilities, The human race had found themselves at a massive disadvantage against the monsters that threatened their very existence. Cities fell on a daily basis, and the human race was forced to retreat and regroup. After 3 consecutive rounds of the grueling body-strengthening technique, Lu Sheng's energy had been completely sapped. Despite his best efforts, his blood energy level had remained unchanged, sweat poured down his face as he struggled to catch his breath, his determination unwavering even in the face of such adversity. He knew that his parents had sacrificed so much for him, and he refused to let them down now. Grimacing with effort, he slowly rose to his feet, but as he stood there, wavering on unsteady legs, he suddenly felt a wave of dizziness sweep over him. The world spun around him, followed by his collapsing onto the ground. Lu Sheng woke up, but what he saw around him was not the familiar surroundings of his bedroom. Instead, he found himself in a desolate wasteland of his familiar nightmare. Lu Sheng tried to wake himself up from this nightmare, but to no avail. And then, a zombie leaped toward Lu Sheng, its gruesome mouth inches away from his face. In the past few nights, Lu Sheng had run from this monster in terror, but this time, something inside him snapped. With a primal roar, he unleashed all the energy he could muster into his legs and kicked the zombie away. Not content to stop there, Lu Sheng grabbed a nearby rock and began beating the undead creature mercilessly, striking it again and again until its body finally gave way, leaving behind a strange black liquid that oozed toward him. As he watched the viscous liquid approach, a torrent of unfamiliar memories flooded Lu Sheng's mind, vivid and disorienting. He saw an unknown man, speaking to a friend on the beach, about his desire to join the elite defensive squad. The man soon donned a military uniform and became a member of the prestigious base number 1359, where he underwent rigorous training. Then, a chaotic memory of the base being breached by monstrous creatures. In this sudden onslaught of memories, Lu Sheng felt his heart racing, struggling to come to grips with the deluge of information. Lu Sheng stood in disbelief, wondering how he had managed to retain the memories of the men he had just defeated in their zombie form. His hand trembled uncontrollably, unaware of the powerful aura surrounding him. Just as he was lost in thought, a sudden attack came from behind. Without missing a beat, Lu Sheng spun around and with a single fluid motion, snapped the head off the zombie with graceful movement, sending its body collapsing to the ground in a heap. As the lifeless corpse began to dissolve into a dark, viscous fluid, Lu Sheng felt a strange sense of energy pulsing through his veins. With a sudden rush of power coursing through his body, Lu Sheng realized that he not only had the ability to retain the memories of those he defeated, but he could also absorb their power. Lu Sheng couldn't believe what he was experiencing. He remembered that he was in the realm of his dreams. He took a deep breath and wondered only if everything was real. Despite the surreal nature of his dream, Lu Sheng couldn't shake the feeling that there was something important he needed to discover. The memory of the military base number 1359 lingered in his mind once again, teasing him with the possibility of unlocking the secrets of this strange world. Suddenly, the dream became disoriented. He was pulled back into the real world, where his sister was calling him to dinner. Lu Qinghe, the only younger sister of Lu Sheng, took a closer look at Lu Sheng, currently glistening with sweat. The chiseled body underneath the shirt made her blush. She quickly turned around and walked away. Lu Sheng recollected the days of his youth when he and his sister were inseparable, but the dynamics between them shifted dramatically after the first evaluation test, which showed the result to be an astonishing blood energy level of 1, and power level of 100. It was not unexpected, given that his sister was a prodigy, destined for a brilliant future. Lu Sheng took a deep breath, then he gazed upon his reflection in the mirror and beheld his exquisitely sculpted physique, feeling not a shred of exhaustion, and all the memories and power he gained from the dream were carried over, causing him to ponder if he could truly manifest the power of his subconscious dreams into the real world. Shrugging off his ruminations, Lu Sheng walked over to the dinner table. At the table, he devoured the food, one bowl of rice after another, as if his gut were akin to a black hole. With nothing left on the table, he nervously withdrew his arms, but his father snatched his bowl and implored his mother to cook more rice and prepare additional dishes. The father seemed elated by his son's great appetite, and even his sister beamed a graceful smile. Following dinner, Lu Sheng strode towards a nearby martial arts academy, where the instructor was a level 4 martial artist and a well-known figure in the city. The hierarchical structure of martial arts is as follows. A level 1 martial artist is deemed standard if their blood energy level is 1.5, and battle strength stands at 150. A level 2 martial artist surpasses this with a blood energy level of 15 and a battle strength of 1500. A level 3 martial artist ups the ante with a blood energy level of 100 and a battle strength of 10,000, while a level 4 martial artist must exceed a blood energy level of 200 and a battle strength of 100,000. As Lushing approached the reception desk, he inquired about undergoing a test to assess his blood energy level and battle strength. Despite her awareness that he may not hail from a wealthy background, the receptionist maintained her professionalism. In the training room, Lushing rested his hand on a gleaming crystal ball to gauge his blood energy level. To his astonishment, it had skyrocketed to 0.963, a significant improvement from his previous score of 0.7. Sensing an opportunity to prove himself, he turned his attention to another device, curious about his battle strength. He took a deep breath and assumed the combat form he had memorized from the recollections of 2 fallen soldiers. With fluid movements, he struck out, and his battle strength registered an impressive 113. The magnitude of his improvement within a mere hour left Lushing incredulous. He pondered what heights he could achieve if he spent a full 10 hours honing his abilities within the dream realm. As he lay in bed, staring blankly at the ceiling and counting a menagerie of more than 10,000 sheep, he found himself unable to fall asleep. Frustrated and restless, he rose and flipped on the light switch, resolving to undertake some additional exercises. He assumed his stance, preparing to perform the body-strengthening technique. But something felt odd. He executed unfamiliar movements, doing these movements subconsciously as if channeling the memory of the fallen soldier. As Lushing continued to implement the new movements, he discovered that there were over 200 additional maneuvers. Every time he practiced, he felt a distinct surge of energy coursing through him. It was not only the body-strengthening technique that benefited from this new knowledge. His breathing technique also experienced a noticeable enhancement. A single session felt like it had granted him years of training results, leaving him astounded at his newfound prowess. As Lushing completed the entire technique, he experienced a sensation akin to his soul being wrenched from his body. He felt extreme hunger, and his body's water content seemed to have evaporated. It was clear to him that regular food would not suffice. He required high-quality supplements to maintain his newfound strength. However, the cost of these supplements was astronomical, and he recognized that he would need to find a means of earning money to fund his ongoing growth. The next day, Lushing found himself in the school gym, ready for the combat lesson. The teacher, Mr. Zhong, was a level 2 martial artist who had faced a monster head-on and bore the scars to prove it. However, Lushing couldn't help but feel that the movements and techniques Mr. Zhong was presenting were too simplistic, and lacked power compared to what he had learned in his dreams. As Mr. Zhong finished his demonstration, he called upon one of the most popular students in the school, Yang, to spar with him. Yang was not only handsome but also the top student in his class, and his family was incredibly wealthy. Yang had become quite the supplement connoisseur, and his blood energy level had soared to an impressive 1.2. After sparring, Mr. Zhong praised Yang's movements, promising additional feedback after class. But despite the teacher's compliments, Yang couldn't help but sneer at the words in his mind. Mr. Zhong then asked if anyone was brave enough to spar with Yang, but all the students avoided eye contact, leaving him disappointed. However, just as Mr. Zhong's disappointment began to show, his gaze met Lushing's piercing stare. In Lushing's eyes, Yang could see a formidable aura, one that he had only ever witnessed in those who had tasted the bitter reality of death. Ming desperately tried to persuade Lushing to forfeit, fearing that his friend would suffer serious injuries. However, Lushing merely smiled and reassured Ming that he had nothing to worry about. As he stood in the gym, Yang arrogantly raised his hand and sneered at Lushing, warning him to steer clear of his hand lest it shatters. Undeterred, Lushing graciously thanked Yang for his advice and declared that he was ready to fight. Suddenly, Yang lunged at him with the intent of ending the match with a single punch. But much to his astonishment, Lushing effortlessly evaded the attack and landed a precise blow to Yang's face, sending him hurtling to the opposite end of the room. As Mr. Zhong frantically rushed over to check on Yang's well-being, the other students looked on in shock and awe. It was inconceivable that Yang had been defeated with a single punch. Yang has quickly whisked away from the gym on a stretcher, leaving behind a stunned and bewildered crowd. Lusheng, meanwhile, felt a sense of remorse for his actions and apologized to Mr. Zhong for what had transpired. To his surprise, Mr. Zhong remained silent for a few moments before placing a reassuring hand on Lusheng's shoulder. After a brief exchange, Mr. Zhong invited Lusheng to his office. The office was simple, with only the potted plant and a battle strength testing machine. With a stern expression on his face, Mr. Zhong demanded to know if Lusheng had been using any illegal steroids or performance-enhancing drugs, which were strictly prohibited by the school due to their damaging effects on the body, demanding Lusheng to prove it. In response, Lusheng calmly rested his hand on the crystal ball. A sudden jolt of electricity filled the room, and the machine displayed a blood energy level of 1.532, effectively classifying Lusheng as a level 1 martial artist. Mr. Zhong was taken aback by this revelation. The mere term prodigy seemed insufficient to capture the immense talent possessed by Lusheng, who at the age of just 18 had already achieved the rank of a formal level 1 martial artist. Mr. Zhong struggled to gather his thoughts when he was suddenly jolted out of his reverie by a loud noise. The next thing he knew, the battle strength testing machine was in pieces, as was the potted plant. Despite being saddened by the loss of his beloved plant, Mr. Zhong couldn't help but be awestruck by Lusheng's incredible strength. After a moment of stunned silence, Mr. Zhong learned that just 2 weeks prior, Lusheng had only possessed a blood energy level of 0.8. He leaped to his feet in disbelief, amazed that Lusheng had managed to achieve such incredible feats in just a fortnight. Mr. Zhong eagerly asked if Lusheng was from a renowned family or if he had been taught by a grandmaster. To his surprise, Lusheng revealed that he was neither born into nobility nor had he received any formal training. Mr. Zhong reflected on his own past experiences, reminiscing about how he had become a level 2 martial artist before joining the army. He remembered the lessons he had learned on the battlefield, where he had come to the realization that people like him could never hope to triumph over the monsters. The sheer strength and power of those beasts were beyond human comprehension, and the only individuals capable of standing against them were those with even greater strength, individuals like Lusheng. Taking a deep breath, Mr. Zhong suggested that based on Lusheng's remarkable abilities, he should be placed in the elite class and given access to the very best educational resources available. However, Lusheng politely declined the offer, as he knew that no amount of education could compare to the opportunities he could create in his dreams. As Mr. Zhong continued to implore Lusheng, he spoke with an air of conviction that bordered on the theatrical. He assured Lusheng that the school would always have his back, but Lusheng, wary of empty promises, made 2 firm requests: a scholarship application and the freedom to attend class on his own terms. Mr. Zhong seemed to understand Lusheng's struggle, but he quickly regained his composure and nodded sagely. He knew that obtaining a scholarship would take some time, so he took matters into his own hands. With a flourish, Mr. Zhong produced his bank card and handed it to Lusheng, telling him to pay him back whenever he could. Lusheng was taken aback by this unexpected display of generosity. As Lusheng walked out of Mr. Zhong's office, his heart was racing with anticipation. The prospect of encountering another prodigy was enough to send shivers down his spine. To think that there was someone else out there with level 2 martial arts battle strength at the tender age of 18 was simply mind-boggling. He saw the young man as a secret weapon, a powerful asset that could stun the other schools on exam day. But it wasn't just about winning a competition. Mr. Zhong had grander aspirations for Lusheng. He spoke of that place, a hallowed ground that had remained elusive for so many years. As Lusheng stood before the imposing gates of the Renshin pharmacy, he couldn't help but feel a pang of envy as he watched a mother purchase expensive supplements for her daughter. He knew all too well the harsh reality of the martial arts world, that wealth and privilege often paved the way for success. He was all too aware of the obstacles in his path. His thoughts turned to his younger sister, who was still trapped in the same cycle of poverty and hardship dragged down by him. In that moment, Lusheng felt like a fish trapped in a small tank, yearning for the vast ocean beyond. But he couldn't help but cling to the comfort and familiarity of his water tank. With a newfound sense of purpose, Lusheng felt as though he had broken through the confines of his old life and stepped into a brave new world. The opportunities that lay ahead of him were boundless, and he was determined to seize them with both hands. It was as if he had broken through a bottleneck that had been holding him back. His memories, techniques, and combat experience now seemed clearer than ever before, and he was able to absorb them as his own. As he walked through the bustling streets of the city, Lusheng couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and determination. With a sense of purpose burning in his heart, Lusheng purchased an acupuncture machine for his father, supplements for his sister, and groceries for his mother. In Lusheng's dream realm, he moved with the grace of a seasoned warrior, effortlessly taking down another zombie with a single swift strike. The memories that flooded his mind led him ever closer to his destination, Base 1359. As he battled wave after wave of the undead. Finally, he arrived at the base itself and was awestruck by the massive walls that surrounded it. The walls were at least 20 meters thick, and Lusheng couldn't help but wonder what kind of attack could possibly breach such fortifications. If this world, with its advanced martial arts and evolved civilization, was still so vulnerable in the face of the monsters, what hope was there for his own world? As he explored the city within the walls, Lusheng's eyes were drawn to a towering building that seemed to be the command center. Within its walls, he caught a glimpse of a man dressed all in white, his face expressionless, and with only one arm. Out of nowhere, Lusheng felt an immense surge of killing intent. It was as if the very air itself had thickened with the weight of this impending danger. The lethal energy emanating from the commanding center shook him on the ground. As Lusheng stood there, still reeling from the shock of the man's killing intent, he knew in his gut that he shouldn't linger in that place. He retreated slowly, eyes darting around for any sign of danger, and eventually stumbled upon a room unlike any other he had seen in the base. As he approached a machine in the center of the room, his hand rested on the machine, and suddenly it sprang to life, emitting a soft hum. A moment later, a holographic image flickered into existence before him, the image of a female AI. Lusheng was stunned when he heard the woman speak his language. The AI introduced herself as a product from the Tianheng Tech, 16th generation support artificial intelligence. Her name is I, who is responsible for the network in Base 1359. Lusheng requested to see the most recent news. He couldn't help but wonder what other secrets lay hidden within this mysterious base. As soon as Lusheng made his request, I sprang into action. With the speed and efficiency that only an artificial intelligence could muster, she conjured up a series of tabs that displayed the latest and greatest news from around the galaxy. I was a 16th generation support AI from Tianheng Tech, and her programming was second to none. The first tab that popped up was a doozy. In June of the martial year 11024, Base 1359 had successfully launched its 58th exploration spaceship in search of a suitable planet. But the news wasn't all good. The second tab that appeared informed Lusheng that in July, Base 105 had fallen. It was a stark reminder that even with all their technology and martial prowess, humanity was still vulnerable to the dangers of the monsters. And speaking of martial prowess, the third tab that I summoned up was a real shocker. Apparently, General Sun Kang had just become the 472nd level 10 martial artist. Lusheng was amazed. He had no idea that there were so many level 10 martial artists out there. And yet, even with all that power, humanity was still unable to protect its own planet, forcing them to abandon it. Lusheng's heart sank as he absorbed the devastating news. The human civilization had been completely wiped out. No reports or signals were coming from the exploration spaceship, indicating that there was no hope for their survival. It was a stark reminder of the harsh realities of the universe, where even the mightiest civilizations could be reduced to nothing in the blink of an eye. With a heavy heart, Lusheng turned to I for some solace. He asked her to provide him with the history of this planet, hoping to learn something from their demise. As the data streams began to flow, as he delved deeper into the planet's past, Lusheng's shock only grew. The timeline of events that I was rendering for him was eerily similar to the history of his own world. Monsters erupting from all over the world, the emergence of the first martial artist with power in the 34th martial art year, and the establishment of the Martial Art Association, all of these were events that had happened in Lusheng's own world as well. Astonished and disoriented, Lusheng came to the realization that the events he had just witnessed were not a glimpse of an alternate world. but a shocking revelation about the fate of his own world, thousands of years in the future. A chill ran down his spine as he contemplated the implications of this knowledge. But even in the face of such bleak prospects, Lucian refused to lose hope. Perhaps this was just a coincidence or a parallel universe. With a renewed sense of purpose, Lucian turned his attention to gathering more information. He asked I to search for personal details about himself and his family, but his hopes were soon dashed when he discovered that he had passed away at a young age, just 28 years old, in the martial year 325. His curiosity was piqued, and he then attempted to search for information about his younger sister. But he was thwarted by the system, which demanded that he prove his gene blood before he could register for access. Puzzled and frustrated, Lucian wondered how he could provide the necessary blood sample. At that moment, I came to the rescue, biting onto Lucian's finger and collecting the required blood sample. Lucian couldn't help but be amazed at the sheer wildness of the future, where even artificial intelligence had become capable of such unorthodox behavior. As I's expression changed and red windows started popping up, Lucian couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. But before he could even ask, his personal information was suddenly refreshed, revealing that he had been a level 4 martial artist, a top graduate of the White River Academy, and a proud alumnus of the White River Martial University. After graduation, he joined the army and valiantly fought in battle, until his untimely death at the age of 37 in the martial year of 334. Lucian was dumbfounded. He had always believed that he was a prodigy, destined for greatness and fame. But now he realized that he was just one among many. A small cog in the vast machinery of history didn't even cause a small rabble. Lucian looked at the details with a discerning eye, and to his dismay, he discovered some flaws. The record showed that he had achieved a commendable score in the exam, although a decent score if just solely relying on basic training. He was certain that if he incorporated the ability of his dream realm, his scores would skyrocket to unprecedented heights. Lucian, being an unparalleled warrior, was not content with mediocrity. He knew that he was destined for greatness and that his future was not confined to this mundane reality. Lucian had an unyielding conviction within him, to become the strongest person and be the person who alters history. He aspires to be more than a mere spark, but rather the catalyst that sets the world ablaze. The following day, Lucian explained to his mom that he can now learn from home, no longer have to go to class. Both his sister and his mom were skeptical. After finishing his breakfast, he went back to his room to train. Lu Qinghe stared at her brother. She felt that he had changed a lot, although she doesn't know how to explain it. But her brother surely felt more mysterious now. After seeing what he had seen in his dream realm, he knew there were no time to waste, and he must climb to the top as fast as he can, and in search of a way to change the future. Back in the dream realm, Lucian requested eye to all notes, books and training methods related to martial arts. Lucian had to narrow it down to the ones just suitable for his own level. After filtering, there were 3 top selected choices, all written by level 11 martial artists. One is the basic stellar body enhancing technique, the second was a natural breathing technique, lastly was the crystal meditation technique, all part of the Spark program. It was as if a veil had been lifted from Lucian's eyes, revealing the secrets of the martial arts world. These top-tier martial artists had foreseen the impending doom of the world and had preserved the essence of their lifelong crafts, hoping that someone would continue their legacy. Lucian wasted no time and immediately delved into the 3 selected techniques. The stellar body enhancing technique was a profound method that set the human body into a micro-universe, strengthening every part of the body and imbuing every cell with the power of a star. The natural breathing technique allowed its practitioners to absorb the power of different elements, enhancing their physical capabilities. Lastly, the crystal meditation method was used to bolster mental fortitude and make one more resilient to stress and adversity, thereby allowing them to train more effectively. But after waking up from his dream realm, he noticed that the techniques had purified his body, flushing out all toxins. Lucian is also preparing to use the formula to craft his own supplements. The next day, Lucian arrived at the White River Academy. Mr. Zhong greeted him warmly but reminded him to attend at least 1 class per week. He made his way to the pharmacy, determined to rent a room for his supplement crafting. Despite several rejections, Lucian persisted. Mr. Zhong saw the fire in his eyes and personally funded him an additional 50,000, giving him the means to purchase everything he needed. Lusheng knew that he needed to pay the favor back one day. Just when Lusheng was about to give up on finding a room, fate intervened. He stumbled upon a quiet pharmacy. The cashier was deeply indulged in live stream and told Lusheng just grab whatever he needs. Lusheng managed to catch the cashier's attention, and after some clever bribery, he was granted use of a room for 3 hours. Donning his lab coat, Lusheng began his work. He mixed and measured, using techniques from shows like Rick and Morty and Full Metal Alchemist to create his ultimate supplement. Lusheng held his final product in his hands. It was a supplement unlike any other, containing rare and powerful knowledge from 10,000 years in the future. Lusheng boldly gingerly brought the supplement to his lips, eagerly awaiting the promised effects. However, as he gulped down the liquid, he was dismayed to feel nothing at all. Was this yet another worthless elixir? But then, a sudden jolt coursed through his chest, sending him reeling to the ground in agonizing pain. His body convulsed as he cried out in torment, the veins in his neck bulging with the strain. For several endless minutes, Lusheng writhed on the floor, unable to do anything but endure the excruciating sensations tearing through him. But then, as abruptly as it had started, the torment subsided, leaving him gasping and drenched in sweat. Despite the searing agony he had just experienced, Lusheng was astounded by the effectiveness of the supplement. Not only had it bolstered his blood energy levels, but it had also worked wonders on his complexion, leaving his skin glowing with a newfound radiance. However, Lusheng was suddenly interrupted by the urgent knocking of the cashier at the door. With no time to spare, the young man gestured frantically to Lusheng to flee through the back exit, warning him that the owner had returned. As the owner strode into the lab, her expression was a seething mask of frustration and disappointment. She had always known that the supplement industry was cutthroat and unforgiving, but now more than ever she was acutely aware of the need to stay on the cutting edge. She thought bitterly of her family, whose stubborn adherence to outdated ideologies had ultimately led to their downfall. It was only by embracing change and innovation that one could hope to succeed in this ruthless market. The cashier, nervously fidgeting in the corner, offered a timid greeting as the owner swept past him. Her heart sank as she noticed the stains on her lab coat, and she rounded on the hapless young man with a withering glare. "Have you let someone into my lab?" she demanded, her voice cold and sharp as a blade. The cashier stammered and stuttered, unable to offer a coherent response. With a snarl of frustration, the owner fired him on the spot. As she began to tidy up the lab, her eyes fell on the scattered remnants of Lusheng's supplements. With a sudden surge of curiosity, she scooped up the tiny droplets. To her astonishment, she discovered that even a single drop of the supplement was astonishingly powerful. The owner then dashed out of the shop in hot pursuit of the cashier. As the cashier turned towards the sound of the approaching footsteps, his heart leaped with excitement at the sight of the owner sprinting towards him. Her lithe figure and flowing hair seemed to cast a spell over him, and he imagined that perhaps this was finally his chance for his own harem. But before he could even utter a word, the owner had grabbed him by the collar, her expression fierce and commanding as she demanded to know who had used her lab. The cashier could feel the force of her grip rocking him back and forth. The owner promised to double his salary if he could get in touch with the person who used her lab. And he trembled and handed his phone over. The owner could feel her pulse racing with excitement and anticipation. As she knew the supplement was at least 10 times more effective than the ones currently in the market for $100,000, what makes it nothing short of a world-class evolution is that the ingredients are so basic and affordable, that its net cost wouldn't even surpass $5,000. Back to Lusheng, who had just completed his grueling training session, his phone suddenly buzzed with an unexpected call from the cashier. However, to his surprise, the voice on the other side was a female voice, who identified herself as the owner of the pharmacy. Her name is Susu. Without hesitation, Susu eagerly requested a meeting with Lusheng, expressing her sincere interest in promoting his revolutionary new supplements. After confirming the meeting for next week, Susu could hardly contain her excitement at the prospect of meeting the masterful pharmacist. Her enthusiasm was quickly dampened when the cashier divulged a startling revelation. The man who had been using her lab was merely a high school student. After a brief shock, she is now even more curious about Lusheng's real identity. As Lusheng delved deeper into the dream realm, he could feel his power growing with each passing day. Today, his target was a level 4 martial artist zombie, a formidable opponent, Without a moment's hesitation, Lusheng charged toward the zombie, but as he closed in for the kill, he was caught off guard by a swift counterattack that left his arm numb and throbbing with pain. The zombie roared with fury, its bloodlust driving it forward as it lunged toward Lusheng once again. This time, Lusheng was ready. He didn't try to take the zombie head-on, instead choosing to duck and dodge. Moving swiftly to the side, Lusheng unleashed a devastating roundhouse kick that sent the zombie crashing to the ground. Lusheng leaped into the air and brought down a crushing axe kick that left the zombie motionless on the ground. As Lusheng delved deeper into the memories of these fallen warriors, he began to shed his initial perception of them as mere monsters, instead viewing them as fallen soldiers who once valiantly protected their land. With a deep sense of reverence, he humbly bowed to show his respect before turning to leave. Having dedicated himself to mastering the 3 techniques, Lusheng spent a week honing his skills. The fruits of his labor had been nothing short of astonishing, his power had grown exponentially. Eager to put his newfound skills to the test, Lusheng made his way to a martial arts school where he requested the use of a testing dummy. And he now boasted a new blood energy level of 15.632, propelling him to the rank of a level 2 martial artist. Lusheng turned his gaze towards the testing dummy, his eyes glinting with a fierce determination. With a simple punch, he shattered the previous record, clocking in an impressive battle strength of 3,137, double that of an average level 2 martial artist. But Lusheng was not content to rest on this number. He knew that this was merely a glimpse of his true potential, as he assumed his stance, but this time he was serious. As he stepped away from the testing site, Lusheng was greeted by the radiant smile of the receptionist lady. As Lusheng left the school, he strolled past a pair of young martial arts enthusiasts. The young girl, who happened to be the owner's daughter, was engaged in a light-hearted exchange with the receptionist lady. The receptionist lady was clearly taken aback by Lusheng's strikingly handsome appearance. However, the other male student, who was eavesdropping on their conversation, had a different view on the matter. He felt that looks were irrelevant and that only one's martial attainments mattered. In his eyes, Lusheng, who appeared to be an average kid, was nothing more than a lost cause. The male student's arrogance was palpable, his superiority complex by the fact that he had grown up using all kinds of supplements, making him much stronger than his peers his age. However, before he could continue his tirade, the young girl smacked him on the head and gave him a piece of her mind. She sternly reminded him not to discriminate against others and to curb his arrogant behavior. Despite the young girl's admonishments, the male student was still adamant about proving his point. He demanded to see Lusheng's testing results and begged the girl to show them to him. With a resigned sigh, the girl handed over the tablet. As they perused the results, their jaws dropped in disbelief. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Lusheng's blood energy level was off the charts, far surpassing anything they had ever seen before. They couldn't help but wonder if the machine had malfunctioned somehow, but the receptionist lady reassured them that the machine had been checked and calibrated just the day before. Realizing that Lusheng was no ordinary student, they were overcome with a sense of urgency to find him and learn more about him. As Lusheng stepped out of the taxi, the driver seemed to really like Lusheng, and even offered to set him up a date with his daughter. With a polite smile, Lusheng thanked the driver and made his way toward the White River City Martial Artist Association. As he approached the building, he witnessed a young martial artist rushing out, tears streaming down his face. It seemed that the results he had received from testing at home were slightly different from the ones he had received at the association. Undeterred, Lusheng made his way to the front desk and inquired about the martial artist identification assessment. After filling out a form, he was directed to the testing site, which was packed with applicants of all ages, most of whom seemed to be around 25 years old. Among them was a young girl who looked even younger than Lusheng. As Lusheng waited in line, a towering figure emerged from the elevator and began cutting through the line, causing a commotion among the applicants. A female applicant called him out on his brazen behavior, but security brushed her off, claiming that he was there for the level 3 assessment and was thus qualified to bypass the line. The crowd was left astounded, as there were only a handful of level 3 martial artists in the city, and the towering figure before them boasted an impressive score. His blood energy level was an astounding 107, and his battle strength reached an absurd 10831. With a single strike, he sent shockwaves that caused many of the onlookers to lose their balance and fall to the ground. After his assessment, the towering figure turned around and noticed two individuals who seemed unfazed by the power of his strike. One of them was Lucian, who walked towards the assessment machine with a nonchalant demeanor that seemed to suggest he wasn't overly impressed by the display of power. The young girl standing nearby was convinced that Lucian was just an arrogant kid, but she was about to be proven wrong. With no one else in line for assessment, Lucian stepped up to the machine and placed his hand on the crystal. To everyone's surprise, Lucian's blood energy level was 15.701, a remarkable feat considering he was just a high school student. Even the towering figure was taken aback by this unexpected turn of events. As Lucian turned towards the battle strength dummy, he got into his form, his eyes blazing with determination, and his arm filled with a powerful aura.
With the strength of 1,000 suns, Lucian unleashed a crushing blow on the testing dummy. The force was so powerful that it shattered the glass behind it, leaving everyone stunned. To their surprise, Lu Xing's battle strength was a whopping 15,709. That's like having Hulk's biceps and Iron Man's laser beams combined. He tapped into the power of nature's breathing and stellar techniques, reaching 10 times the standard power level for his blood energy. Lu Xing was so absorbed in the art of martial combat that he didn't even notice the worker trembling with excitement as he announced that Lu Xing had passed the level 1 martial artist assessment. But, wait for it, the worker stuttered and corrected himself. Lu Xing had actually passed the level 2, or even 3 assessment. The worker was so confused he didn't even know what the final assessment was, but he promised to report the good news to his seniors and bet his career on it. Before Lu Xing could even react, the worker had sprinted away, leaving him standing there with a smirk on his face. As the worker sprinted away, Lu Xing turned to face the towering figure standing behind him. The atmosphere was electric as they locked eyes. Lu Xing couldn't help but ask, "Anything I can help with?" Suddenly, the towering figure outstretched his hand and introduced himself as Zhao. Lu Xing took a closer look and realized that this guy was a big deal. Zhao must have been at least 7 feet tall with biceps the size of tree trunks. But Lu Xing wasn't intimidated. He outstretched his own hand and shook Zhao's hand. Zhao broke into a huge smile and looked like he had just won the lottery. It was clear that he was genuinely happy to shake Lu Xing's hand. The rest of the people there saw this as the opportunity of a lifetime and rushed over to shake Lu Xing's hand and take selfies with him. It was like the Beatles had just arrived in town. Lu Xing was the man of the hour, the martial arts prodigy that everyone wanted to meet. Lu Xing didn't want to be stuck in the middle of a crowd, so he saw an opening and bolted away. Hundreds of people were chasing him, but they couldn't keep up with Lu Xing's lightning-fast reflexes. Outside of the assessment center, a group of young girls stood waiting for their seniors' results. Among them was his sister, who shouted his name and grabbed his attention. Lu Xing walked towards them, wondering why his sister was there in the first place. His sister was equally confused and stood tall with her hands on her hips, questioning why Lu Xing had been sleeping all day. Lu Xing coughed awkwardly and tried to play it off, saying he was out doing something. The two girls who were accompanying Lu Xing's sister were classmates, and they were both drawn to Lu Xing's handsome looks. They introduced themselves, with the more outgoing one named Fan Fan and the shyer one named Su Nuo. They were there to accompany their senior Yang for his assessment. As Fan Fan kept swooning over Lu Xing's dashing appearance, it was obvious that these ladies were head over heels for him. But the man himself was as humble as a slice of bread and twice as polite. Even King He was blushing at the compliment parade, so Lu Xing did what any good brother would do, he patted her on the head and bid them farewell. Fan Fan couldn't believe her eyes, who knew that siblings could get along so well. It made King He feel like a beetroot in a blender but in a good way. Meanwhile, Yang emerged from the assessment center with a look of defeat on her face. The girls gathered around to ask what happened, and Yang let out a deep sigh. Turns out there was an accident that halted the entire assessment until the afternoon. Everyone was shocked and wondering what could have caused such a catastrophe. Yang stammered as she recounted the encounter with a man she referred to as a monster and a prodigy. This guy was about her age but had a blood energy level of 15.7 and a powerful strength of 15,000. To put it mildly, Yang was feeling pretty small compared to him. She always thought she was hot stuff, but compared to this dude, she might as well be a twig in a hurricane. The girls were in shock. This was the first time they'd seen their always proud senior so set back. They couldn't help but ask for the name of the guy who made Yang feel like a chump. With a serious expression, Yang opened her eyes and revealed that the man's name was none other than Lu Sheng. The group went silent, as the two girls exchanged a glance toward King He. Even she was shocked. Her own brother. Meanwhile, Lu Sheng was heading home, chomping on a giant dumpling like it was his last meal. As he strode closer to his house, he noticed a bunch of middle-aged moms huddling together, looking quite concerned. Apparently, there were some strangers in the neighborhood from the Red Plain Martial Arts School. That's where Lu Sheng usually goes to check his battle strength, so he was curious about what was going on. After finishing his giant dumpling, Lu Sheng pulled out his phone and saw the clerk calling him. But he knew his supplement had the potential to bring in a huge fortune, so he needed to conduct more research and see if this pharmacy had the qualifications for it. After a peaceful slumber, Lu Sheng found himself in the dream realm once again. He beckoned for IE, his trusty assistant in the dream world, to pull up his life record. As he scrolled through the pages, Lu Sheng was ecstatic to see that his future had been altered. This time, he was married, had 3 kids, and died at the ripe old age of 87. Sure, it may not seem like the most exciting life, but it was certainly better than dying as a level 4 martial artist at the age of 37. Lu Sheng scanned through the details of his new life, relishing in the small victories he achieved along the way. At 18, he became a level 2 martial artist and attended a prestigious prodigy camp, where he made it to the top 20. Spent 3 more years in university. After graduation, he served in the military for 5 years and retired as a lieutenant officer. Then, he started his own martial arts school and continued to hone his skills until he reached level 6 at the age of 45. Although he failed to achieve level 7 at the age of 55, he knew he had come close. He later died during a monster invasion in the year 383. He held his fist tightly, feeling a surge of power course through his body. He had successfully changed his future for the better in just a week. He was determined to push through any obstacles and reach his ultimate goal. As Lu Sheng clutched his fist tighter, a sense of determination coursed through his veins. He knew that the mere change he had accomplished was not enough to alter the course of history. He couldn't settle for mediocrity when it came to changing the world. With the weight of humanity's fate on his shoulders, he knew that he needed to push himself to the limit. Level 7, 8, and 9 martial artists were no match for the challenges that awaited him in the future. He needed to go beyond what was considered possible and become a level 10, and even a level 11 martial artist. Lu Sheng understood that his journey wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to persevere. He knew that the road ahead would be rocky, but he was ready to face whatever obstacles lay in his path. The fate of humanity rested on his shoulders, and he knew that he couldn't let them down. He was determined to alter the course of history, to change the inevitable ending. Pause for a second here. Y'all see that he was married? I wanted to know who he was married to. Anyway, back to the story. In a bright room, Chairman Xiao sat at his desk with a Chinese brush in hand. He carefully crafted each stroke of the character with precision, his brush gliding across the page with ease. The person on the other side of the screen couldn't help but compliment his impressive skills, and claimed that Chairman Xiao is one step closer to level 7 martial artist. But the tone shifted, and the person let out a deep sigh, followed by a sarcastic tone as he said, "Only if Chairman Xiao could put equal effort into education." The comment that followed hit Chairman Xiao like a punch to the gut. He felt his hand shake uncontrollably, causing his last strokes to go crooked. He lifted his brush, his eyes fixed on the screen. With an awkward smile, he replied that he had always dreamed of prodigies rising up from White Lake City. Unfortunately, due to 2 reasons, it had always been a rough road. Firstly, there was no historical martial art family to draw from, and secondly, the city lacked the necessary resources to support and cultivate talent. Even if there was a prodigy, they would inevitably move away to find better opportunities. Chairman Xiao couldn't help but feel a sense of despair wash over him. The man's frustration was palpable as he made it clear to Chairman Shao that there could be no excuses. With the prodigy camp right around the corner, it had been years since their city had sent a representative, and the lack of promising results was becoming an embarrassment. To make matters worse, the absence of any candidates was the ultimate disgrace. The man's voice dripped with fury and contempt as he delivered this scathing message. The man's final words were resolute and firm: this time, no matter what, the face of White Lake City must be saved. Finally, he ended the call with an abrupt click, leaving Chairman Shao to ponder the gravity of the situation. Chairman Shao was livid with frustration and anger. He clenched his fists around the pile of papers, knuckles turning white as he covered his face in exasperation. He had always dreamt of discovering prodigies and achieving promising results, but with limited resources and being stuck at level 6 as a martial artist, it seemed like an impossible feat. He was caught in a rut with no hope of leveling up. Just then, a secretary burst into his office, interrupting his train of thought with urgent news. Chairman Shao was in no mood for distractions, but the secretary was adamant that he hears the news. She relayed the message of an 18-year-old level 2 martial artist with a staggering battle strength of 15,000. The news was like a breath of fresh air for the chairman, a ray of hope in his dark day. Upon hearing the news, Chairman Shao snatched the tablet from the secretary and eagerly checked the recordings. The force even shook the secretary's ample bosom, and it went boing boing boing. As both of them scrutinized the recording, Chairman Zhao's sharp eye caught something remarkable. Lu Sheng was executing a perfect state punching technique, Chairman explained to the secretary, a terminology used only in the most elite martial arts circles. The chairman tried to simplify the explanation for the bewildered secretary, telling her that less than 10 people in the world could perform this feat at such a young age. But that was not all. The chairman dug deeper into Lu Sheng's personal information and discovered something even more astounding. How could an 18-year-old possess battle strength that was 10 times the standard level, with only a blood energy level of 15.7? The perfect state could amplify one's strength at most twice, so how was Lu Sheng achieving such a feat? The chairman fell silent for a moment, lost in thought. A 18-year-old, 10 times the standard battle strength, and coming from an average family, the implications were staggering. The excitement was palpable as Chairman Shao burst out with laughter. He couldn't contain his joy at the prospect of discovering a talent like Lu Sheng. In his excitement, he lifted his secretary high up in the air and hugged her tightly, and it went boing 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 again, causing her to blush. As he spun her around, he declared that Lu Sheng was a martial artist talent that only existed once in 10 million. The secretary, still a bit dizzy, asked the chairman what made a gifted martial artist. With a huge smile on his face, Chairman Shao explained that some martial artists were simply born with a natural talent that gifted them with abilities beyond imagination. Some could experience a massive surge in their blood energy level, while others could move faster than lightning or unleash explosive power. Determined to meet Lu Sheng and his family, Chairman Shao quickly got dressed. He couldn't wait to see the young prodigy for himself and offer him an opportunity of a lifetime. At that very moment, a bright-eyed student from the Red Plain eagerly approached the girl with news that they had finally uncovered Lu Sheng's true identity and his place of residence. The younger students, curious as to why their seniors had been devoting so much time to track down this seemingly average and impoverished kid, couldn't help but wonder if Lu Sheng had somehow provoked her wrath. But the girls silenced their doubts with a stern "shush," her attention already diverted to an incoming call on her phone. From the conversation, it became clear that the other party had also set their sights on Lu Sheng, and the girl knew she couldn't afford to waste a single moment. The girl barked orders at the young student to scurry off and fetch lavish gifts for both a parent and a younger sibling. Though still befuddled, the student didn't dare question her authority and raced off to the shopping center without a second thought. Meanwhile, back at Lu Sheng's humble abode, he was jolted awake by a loud knocking at his bedroom door. When he opened it, he was met with an unexpected sight. His entire family, alongside two unfamiliar faces, had gathered in the living room. Before his mother could even introduce the strangers, one of them eagerly stepped forward, introducing himself as the chairman of the esteemed White Lake Martial Artist Association. Lu Sheng knew that such a high-ranking figure must be at least a level 6 martial artist, but he maintained his cool composure and shook the man's outstretched hand. The chairman, impressed by Lu Xing's unflappable demeanor, couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration for the young man. Lu Xing's mother then introduced the other stranger Ni Shuang, from the Red Plain Martial Arts School. The girl greeted Lu Xing, and reminded him that they had once met, during the Red Plain School. As Lu Xing took his seat, the chairman launched into his speech. He had come to present Lu Xing with the coveted badge of a level 2 martial artist, but due to his extraordinary performance, the association had decided to pay him a pension befitting a level 3 martial artist. As if that wasn't enough, the association was also offering a staggering 1 million yuan to encourage Lu Xing. The news hit Lu Xing's family like a ton of bricks, leaving them reeling in disbelief. But Lu Xing himself didn't lose his cool. Though he expressed his gratitude for the support and encouragement, he wasted no time in cutting to the chase. He knew that these kinds of rewards were never handed out without a motive. So he asked the chairman straight up, "Is there anything I need to do?" The chairman was taken aback by Lu Xing's no-nonsense approach. He reached for an envelope in his suit pocket and produced an invitation to attend the prodigy camp in the province. But before he could even finish his sentence, the girl in the room jumped up and began shaking her head vehemently. "Sure, the prodigy camp might have some of the most talented martial artists around," she said, "but it's also a place that destroys talent." As Lu Xing took his seat, the girl launched into his speech. As she leaned in, her eyes lit up with a hint of mischief, and she began to spin a tale of her senior brother, a senior at the same school, who had once been a prodigy. With his remarkable talent, he had high hopes of going into the camp, but when he returned, he was defeated and lost. The young girl implored Lu Xing not to take the same risk, but the chairman interjected, claiming that Lu Xing was different. He saw something in the young man that her senior brother lacked, potential that he knew could take him much further. With a flourish, the chairman handed Lu Xing an envelope and declared that he would respect whatever decision he made. The tension in the air was palpable as Lu Xing's lips curled up in a sly smile. He accepted the envelope and agreed with the chairman's opinion, declaring that he was up for the challenge. The chairman breathed a sigh of relief, feeling as if a stone had just lifted from his heart. He bade farewell to the family, promising to come and pick up Lu Xing in a few days. As the door clicked shut behind the chairman, Lu Xing turned his attention to the young girl sitting before him. The girl's heart raced as she took a closer look at Lu Xing. He had seemed much more handsome in person. Suddenly, she coughed and regained her composure. She came to invite Lu Xing to become an honor student at the prestigious Red Plain Martial Arts School. As an honor student, he would have access to all the school's classes, and equipment, and even have one-on-one sessions with her father. On top of that, he would receive a generous wage, with no liability. Only asking to use his title. But he also sensed that she had an ulterior motive. And he was right, the girl was thinking to use his prodigious talents as a publicity stunt to make her school even more popular in the city. Despite her persuasive arguments, Lu Xing calmly declined her offer. The young woman leaped up from her chair, brimming with enthusiasm as she confidently proclaimed that she could offer even greater benefits. Lu Xing simply shook his head, calmly stating that being an honored member was enough and that she could publicly declare to everyone that he regularly used their equipment and trained there because it was all true. However, he politely declined her offer to become a student, as he had no need for it. With a sense of finality, the girl took a deep breath, realizing that there was nothing more she could do. She reluctantly agreed to the terms, and with a heavy heart, announced that from now on, Lu Xing would be receiving a monthly wage of a staggering 100,000. She rose to bid farewell to Lu Xing and his family. The family still couldn't believe it, their jaws still on the floor from the shock of it all. But Lu Xing's gentle smile and reassuring words helped to ease their minds. As he held on to his mother's hand, he couldn't help but notice the calluses that had formed from years of hard work. It was a testament to the sacrifices that his parents had made to support the family. But now, things were going to be different. Lu Xing had achieved the incredible feat of becoming a level 2 martial artist, and he was going to use his skills to provide for his family. From this day forward, his mother would no longer have to work night shifts, and his father could say goodbye to his backbreaking laborious job. Lu Xing was determined to make sure that his family never had to worry about money again. The pharmacy owner was a bundle of nerves, chewing her nails to the quick as she frantically tried to uncover the identity of the mysterious man who had left behind the incredible supplement. Despite her best efforts, she hadn't been able to find a single clue about him. She had even combed through the list of newly registered pharmacists but to no avail. The more she delved into the supplement, the more amazed she became. The test results were off the charts. It was multiple times stronger than any level 1 or 2 supplements, and it even surpassed some of the levels 3 supplements. And the best part? There were no side effects to worry about. She couldn't believe her luck. A supplement that could easily fetch hundreds of thousands of dollars, all for a meager margin of $3,000. With a loud thud, she slammed her hand on the table in frustration. She knew that she had struck gold with this supplement, but without the man's help, she was powerless. Suddenly, the clerk's speech became stuttered as he pointed towards the television screen. The pharmacy owner jumped up from her seat in excitement, eager to see what he had discovered. As the news report played, she couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief, her ample bosom bouncing with joy. Boing boing, it seemed that the mysterious master was nothing more than an 18-year-old prodigy from White Lake City. Later that evening, deep in the heart of Guhu Mountain, a shadowy figure darted through the treacherous terrain. It was none other than Lu Sheng, his bag slung over his back as he utilized the stellar technique to increase his agility and speed. It wasn't long before he reached the summit, his breaths coming in short gasps as he used the nature breathing technique to recover his energy and stamina. With a sudden burst of energy, Lu Sheng broke through the bottleneck once again. It was a feeling like no other, a rush of power coursing through his veins as he stood atop the mountain, his eyes gleaming with determination, and to his surprise, he had broken the bottleneck and leveled up. Lu Sheng had come to this mountain for a very specific reason, to collect rare and potent herbs for his new supplement. He knew that there were countless plants here that had yet to be discovered and used in this era. As he journeyed deeper into the mountain, he plucked the most promising specimens, storing them carefully in his satchel. Finally, he reached the bottom of the mountain, where he had pre-ordered additional herbs from a green-shirt man wearing a hat. The man presented his wares with a sly grin, and Lu Sheng couldn't help but feel a twinge of suspicion. Examining the herbs closely, Lu Sheng could tell that they were all in excellent condition and incredibly fresh. He reached for his wallet to pay the man the agreed-upon price, but suddenly, the man's tone changed. With a sneaky glint in his eye, he raised the price twice, pointing to the remaining herbs and insisting that Lu Sheng purchase them all. Well, guess who is going to get his ass smacked? Lu Sheng narrowed his eyes, unimpressed by the sudden change of events. The man who stood before him arrogantly declared that Lu Sheng was an outsider and needed to follow his rules. As he spoke, a group of menacing men emerged from the forest, brandishing weapons in their hands. A wry grin spread across Lu Sheng's face as he instantly recognized what these guys were up to. The group cracked their knuckles and advanced menacingly toward the seemingly naive and innocent teenager, their laughter and threats filling the air. But Lu Sheng was not one to be intimidated easily. In a swift motion, he gripped a giant rock on his side and squeezed it with all his might, shattering it into tiny pieces. The group stood stunned, sweat beading on their foreheads as they realized they were no match for this young powerhouse. With a calm and steady gaze, Lu Sheng removed his hand from the rock and locked eyes with the group, wondering if they still had the foolishness to try and take him on. Their uncertain expressions spoke volumes as they backed away slowly, realizing that they had met their match in this formidable outsider. As Lu Sheng stood tall, the group of men fell to their knees in a flurry of apologies and begged for his forgiveness. They even went as far as calling him Daddy. Lu Sheng couldn't help but grin at their sudden change of heart. With a shrug of his broad shoulders, Lu Sheng informed them that he would be on his way. As he picked up the bucket of herbs the green shirt guy had instructed him to take, he was pleasantly surprised to find that they were all free. He had planned to pay for them, but this unexpected turn of events left him feeling grateful. The group watched in awe as Lu Sheng casually strolled away, the bucket of herbs in his hand. Their encounter with him had been a wake-up call, and they knew that they could no longer continue their thuggish ways. They decided to turn their lives around and pursue something more meaningful. As the sun rose on a new day, Lu Sheng arrived at the prodigy camp, a sprawling compound that looked like something out of a military movie. He couldn't help but notice that most of the people here were proudly sporting their badges, while his own badge was still sitting in a display case back at home. A stern-looking middle-aged man approached him and demanded to know why he was there and where he came from. Lu Xing calmly explained his situation, but the bystanders began to mock him, calling him a redneck for not having a badge. Unperturbed, the man checked his information and quickly realized that Lu Xing was a man referred by the chairman of the White Lake Association. He guided Lu Xing to the right place, leading him through the maze of buildings until they finally arrived at their destination. As the candidates filed into the room, the giant doors ominously sealed behind them. Some began to panic, but a stern-looking man quickly introduced the rules. To pass the entrance exam, they would need to find their way out of the room. Suddenly, the ground beneath them gave way, and everyone plummeted into darkness. Some of the candidates were prepared for the fall and landed gracefully, while others crashed to the ground with a sickening thud. For example, this idiot over here. Lu Xing surveyed the scene calmly, his sharp senses taking in every detail. He looked down the long hallway that stretched out before him, knowing that this was no ordinary passage. As he did, a man in a red coat named Lin began to sneer at the situation. Lin tried to assert his authority over the other candidates, attempting to unify those from Qin Yuan City and paint Lu Xing as an outsider. Pointing a finger at Lu Xing, he declared that the young man would be nothing more than a cannon folder, a pawn in their game, and ordered Lu Xing to check out the path for everyone. Lu Xing chuckled and shoved Lin aside, and smirk etched across his face. "Gigachad always flies solo," he jeered, while the weaklings huddled together like scared pussies. Lin's face flushed with anger and embarrassment as he seethed with the desire to take revenge on Lu Xing. He threatened to kill him, but little did he know that karma was about to catch up with him. Suddenly, Lu Xing's foot triggered a hidden trap on the floor, causing a swarm of enormous red balls to cascade down the hallway. As if that wasn't enough, the balls then transformed into high-tech robots that towered over the candidates, each one far stronger than a level 1 martial artist. With well over a dozen of them, the odds were stacked against the group. As the two cowards continued to taunt Lu Xing, a brave girl warned him to be careful. But he didn't need the warning, as he casually caught one of the robot's punches with just one hand. "Is that all you've got?" he scoffed, before effortlessly dismantling the robot's limbs and filling the room with the sound of electricity. As expected, there's always that one clown in the group who refuses to acknowledge the obvious. In this case, it was this buffoon who couldn't fathom the idea that Lu Xing was a force to be reckoned with. Instead of showing some humbleness, he giggled and proclaimed that the robots were just a pile of junk. He even dared to try and lead the group away from the danger, but they were all understandably hesitant. With everyone else trembling with fear, this moron swaggered over to one of the robots and placed his hands on his hips. With a burst of confidence, he sprang into the air and aimed a spinning kick at the robot's head. To everyone's surprise, he actually managed to uncoil the robot's head from its body. But before he could even bask in his own glory, a colossal fist came out of nowhere and sent him flying across the room. The impact of the blow dislocated his jaw, knocked out several of his teeth, and broke his cheekbone. With an unintelligible babble, the buffoon muttered something about the robots being a level 2 threat, not level 1. As the group helped the battered buffoon to his feet, they watched in awe as Lu Xing decimated the robots with ease. It was almost as if he was bored with the whole ordeal. With a casual yawn, he effortlessly broke through the robots' defenses and exposed their cores, making quick work of them. Meanwhile, outside the hallway, a worker had been keeping an eye on the situation. At first, he had assumed that the robots had malfunctioned, but then the door behind him creaked open, revealing a scene of chaos and destruction. Flames roared through the hallway as the robots exploded one by one. Lu Xing caught sight of the worker and quickly deduced that he was likely a guardian for the second stage. Without hesitation, he unleashed a devastating punch. In the control room, a stunning woman with black stockings monitored the entire camp. A green-haired man entered the room, holding a steaming cup of coffee. He greeted the woman by her first name, much to her chagrin. The woman scowled and ordered the man, who was none other than Major Qin Zhaojun, to to address her by her proper title, Lieutenant Colonel Dong Jing Shui. As the two settled into their chairs, Major Qin couldn't help but express his curiosity about the quality of the prodigy camp. Lieutenant Colonel Dong rubbed her forehead in frustration, unimpressed by the candidates she had seen thus far. There were only 8 who even met the standard, and none of them seemed particularly special. That is until she noticed one girl who stood out from the rest. This girl was an 18-year-old martial artist with a spirit type, who was almost at the level of a spiritual master and approaching level 2 as a martial artist. Her skills were impressive, to say the least. Lieutenant Colonel Dong couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope for the camp's future prospects. As Major Qin took a sip of his coffee, he tried to break the silence with a joke, but his attempt fell flat, leaving him with an awkward smile. He quickly shifted his attention to the screens in front of him, scanning the various camera feeds in the camp. Suddenly, his eyes widened in shock and he accidentally spilled hot coffee all over himself, but he didn't even flinch as his gaze remained fixated on the screen. Lieutenant Colonel Dong Jing Shui noticed Major Qin's reaction and immediately turned her attention to the screen as well, her eyes widening in surprise. What they saw was unbelievable. What y'all thought of this Lieutenant Colonel? Do you think she is waifu material? Anyway, this concludes the latest chapter, and we will be ending it here. I hope you enjoyed this recap. See you at the next one.